Started like any other summer. I had always been close to Ryan. More than friends, we were practically brothers. His home was like my second home, and his mom, Sophia, was just Ryan's mom. That was it. At least that's what I thought. I never really paid attention to her beyond that. She was always there, kind and welcoming, treating me like her own. But something changed after her divorce. She carried herself differently. Not sad, not broken, just different. Lighter, freer, almost like she was seeing the world in a new way. And maybe, just maybe, she started seeing me differently too. One evening, Ryan had to step out for a few hours, leaving me and Sophia alone in the house. It wasn't a big deal. We had spent time alone before. But that night felt different. The air carried something unspoken, something I didn't want to name. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing, but neither of us was really watching. She laughed at something, her hand briefly resting on my arm. It was a small touch, something that should have meant nothing. But it lingered. "You've grown up so much," she said, almost absent-mindedly. Shrug. "Guess it happens." She turned to me then, eyes lingering just a second too long. "It really does." I should have looked away. I should have changed the subject. But I didn't. The conversation flowed easily after that, like we were both dancing around something we weren't ready to admit. She talked about her life after the divorce. How things felt empty, how she missed having someone to talk to. I listened, nodding in the right places, but my mind was somewhere else. It was on the way she kept playing with the edge of her sweater, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she kept looking at me with something I couldn't quite place. Then she asked me something that caught me off guard. "Do you ever find older women attractive?" I laughed, a nervous, awkward thing. Yeah. I guess." He smirked. "You guess." I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous. "I don't know. I don't really think about it." She leaned back, sipping her wine. "Interesting." Ryan came home soon after, and whatever that moment was, it vanished. But I couldn't shake it. I went home that night, lying awake in bed, replaying everything. The way she looked at me. The way her voice sounded when she asked that question. And worse, how I had wanted to answer honestly. The next few times I went over to Ryan's, things felt off. Not in a bad way, just in a way that made me hyper-aware of her presence. I started noticing things I never noticed before. How graceful she was, how her laugh had this warm, intoxicating quality, how she seemed to always know exactly what to say to make me feel seen. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was imagining the way her touches lasted a second too long, the way her eyes lingered on mine. Maybe I was making something out of nothing. Or maybe I wasn't. A week later, Ryan had to work late, and I was at their house again. Just me and Sophia. Again. She poured herself a glass of wine, then, without asking, poured one for me. "Don't tell Ryan," she teased, passing it over. Smirk. "I won't if you won't." We sat in the dimly lit kitchen, the silence stretching between us in a way that felt charged. I wasn't sure who leaned in first. I wasn't sure if it was intentional or just gravity pulling us together. "You know," she murmured, tracing the rim of her glass. "You've really changed over the years." I swallowed. "Yeah." She nodded, looking at me in a way that made my pulse spike. "Yeah." The space between us shrank. My heart pounded. This was wrong. So wrong. And then Ryan's car pulled into the driveway. We jerked apart, both of us snapping back to reality. She stood quickly, moving to the sink, acting like nothing had happened. I grabbed my drink, forcing myself to breathe normally as the front door swung open. Ryan walked in, oblivious, grumbling about his shift. I laughed at the right moments, nodded when I needed to. But all I could think about was how close I had come to something I wasn't sure I could stop. I went home that night, my mind a mess. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just in my head anymore. And the worst part. I didn't want it to stop, but I told myself I wouldn't let it happen. That whatever was building between us had to stop before it went too far. But the more I tried to push it down, the stronger it got. It was like an itch I couldn't scratch, a thought I couldn't silence. And then it happened. Ryan had picked up extra shifts at work, leaving Sophia home alone most nights. She didn't seem to mind, but I knew better. She was lonely. She didn't say it outright, but I could see it in the way she poured herself a drink a little too often, in the way she hesitated before saying goodnight, like she didn't want to be left alone. I wasn't supposed to go over that night. I knew Ryan wouldn't be home, and I knew being alone with her again was asking for trouble. But when she texted me, just a casual "what are you up to?" I didn't hesitate. She opened the door wearing something casual, but it didn't matter. Everything about her felt different now, like there was an invisible line between us that neither of us acknowledged but both of us felt. We sat in the living room, a bottle of wine between us. The conversation started normal, just small talk, harmless. But then she leaned in, just slightly, and asked a question I wasn't ready for. "Why do you always look at me like that?" Froze. "Like what?" "Like you're thinking something you shouldn't be." I should have laughed it off. I should have changed the subject. But I didn't. 'Cause she wasn't wrong. She watched me waiting, daring me to say something. So I did. "I think you know." For a second she just stared at me. And then slowly she leaned closer. Close enough that I could feel her breath. "This is a bad idea," I murmured. She didn't move away. "I know." And then she kissed me. It wasn't hesitant. It wasn't unsure. It was the kind of kiss that burned, the kind that left no room for second thoughts. And once it started, I knew there was no stopping it. Her hands moved to my face, pulling me deeper, and I let her. I let all the guilt, all the warnings in my head, fade into the background. I let myself get lost in the feeling of her lips, her touch, the way she melted into me like this was something we had both been waiting for. By the time we pulled apart, everything had changed. We didn't talk about it. There was nothing to say. It wasn't a one-time thing. We both knew that without having to admit it. The next time it happened, it was even easier. And the time after that. We fell into a rhythm, stolen moments whenever we could, careful but reckless at the same time. Ryan was clueless. He never suspected a thing. He would talk about work, about plans for the weekend, completely unaware that every time he turned his back, I was betraying him in the worst possible way. The guilt should have eaten me alive. It should have been unbearable. But somehow when I was with her it didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. The thrill of it only made it worse. The risk, the secrecy, the way we had to be careful but couldn't seem to stop. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered moment felt like adding fuel to a fire that we had no intention of putting out. But then we got careless. One evening, Ryan was supposed to be working late. I was with Sophia, the usual routine, quiet, careful, deliberate. But we weren't paying attention. We weren't thinking. And we didn't hear his car pull into the driveway. I barely had time to move before the front door opened. My heart pounded as I scrambled to fix my shirt, to look normal, to not seem like I had just been where I shouldn't have been. Sophia was calm, too calm, as if she had been through this before. She grabbed a glass of water, leaned against the counter like nothing had happened. Ryan walked in, stretching, yawning. "Long shift," he muttered. Then he frowned, looking at me. "What are you doing here?" Shrugged. "Just hanging out." He looked between me and his mom, something unreadable in his expression. "Didn't know you were coming over." Forced a chuckle. "Yeah, last minute." The moment was tense, but he let it go. I thought we had gotten away with it. I was wrong. Something changed after that night. Ryan didn't say anything, but I could tell he was watching me differently. Watching us differently. Sophia noticed too. She told me I was being paranoid, that there was no way he could know. But I wasn't so sure. The way he hesitated before speaking, the way his eyes lingered on mine, like he was waiting for me to slip up. It was only a matter of time before he put the pieces together. I told myself to end it. That this was getting too close, too dangerous. But every time I was with her, all the logic disappeared. The secrecy made it addictive. The constant risk, the thrill of getting away with it, it kept me coming back. We convinced ourselves it was under control, that we could keep hiding it, that no one would ever find out. Then Ryan started asking questions. First they were subtle. "You've been around a lot lately," he said one day. His tone casual but his eyes sharp. I laughed it off. "Yeah, I guess. She likes having you around." He said it like a statement, but I could hear the question underneath. Forced a shrug. "She's cool to talk to." He didn't say anything, but the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. The next time I was with Sophia, I told her we needed to be more careful. That Ryan was noticing things. She just smiled, running a hand down my chest. "Then we'll just have to be smarter," she whispered. And we were. For a while. Until we weren't. One evening, Ryan and I were supposed to meet up at his place before heading out. I got there a little early. He wasn't home yet. But Sophia was. I told myself not to, that it was too risky, that we were playing with fire. But she looked at me like she always did, like she knew I wouldn't be able to say no. We barely had a few minutes before we heard Ryan's car pull in. I bolted up, scrambling for my things, my heart slamming against my ribs. Sophia smoothed her hair, fixing her shirt like nothing had happened. Ryan walked in just as I was reaching for my jacket. His eyes flicked between me and his mom. His expression shifted. Something in him clicked. "You left your jacket in the car," he said, his voice flat. My mouth went dry. My jacket. I hadn't even noticed. He tossed it to me, his eyes locked onto mine. His jaw clenched, his hands tightening into fists at his sides. For a moment there was silence. Then he turned to his mom. "How long?" Sophia opened her mouth, but no words came out. His head snapped back to me. "How long?" I swallowed hard. "Ryan." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Unbelievable." I took a step forward. "Let me explain." He shook his head. "Explain what?" "That you've been sneaking around with my mom behind my back. That you've been lying to my face this whole time." I had never seen him like this. His hands were shaking. His face was red with anger, with betrayal. "You were like my brother," he said. His voice quiet but shaking with rage. "How could you do this?" Had no answer. There was no excuse that would make this okay. He turned to Sophia. "And you? You really went for my best friend." She took a step forward. "Ryan, please. Don't." He stepped back, shaking his head. "I don't want to hear it." His eyes met mine one last time, and for the first time since I had known him, I saw nothing there. No friendship, no understanding, just cold, unforgiving anger. "Get out." I hesitated. Get out starred. Left. And just like that, it was over. I thought about calling him. About trying to fix what was broken. But what was there to fix? The damage was done, and there was no coming back from it. Ryan was my best friend. That part of my life was over now, and it was my fault. Sophia tried to reach out too, but it wasn't the same. The thrill was gone, replaced by something heavier, something neither of us wanted to face. Without the secrecy, without the rush, all that was left was the mess we had made. She told me she didn't regret it, that she had spent too much of her life doing what was expected, and for once, she had done something for herself. But that didn't change the fact that it was over. Ryan moved out a week later. He didn't say where he was going. He didn't tell me goodbye. I heard from a mutual friend that he had blocked me on everything. I didn't blame him. The silence was the worst part. The way everything just stopped. No more random texts. No more plans. No more feeling like I had someone in my corner. I told myself I deserved it. That this was the price I had to pay. And then one night Sophia called. I almost didn't answer. But I did. She sounded tired. Like she hadn't been sleeping. "I miss you," she admitted. I closed my eyes, leaning back against the wall. "Sophia. I know." Her voice was soft. "I just wanted to say it." We sat in silence for a long moment. "I don't know how to fix this," I finally said. "You can't." I let out a breath. "Yeah." Another pause. Then quieter. "Would you change it if you could?" I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. Would I? Would I undo everything if it meant keeping my best friend? Or would I do it all over again, knowing how it would end? Finally, I whispered, I don't know. And maybe that was the real problem. The line had been crossed, and there was no erasing it. No going back to how things were before. Ryan was gone. The friendship, the trust, it was all gone. And all I had left was a question I didn't want to answer.